can you briefly talk me through your year, some of the highlights, lowlights, that sort of thing?
Look, the highlight of this year for ACT has been the way that our team has come together. So everyone said, oh, you brought in these rookies, they won't go so well. Brooke Van Velden, a senior journalist, is named the top rookie MP of the year. We've seen them grow in confidence and grow in their presence. And more people can say, oh, you've got all these other people too. So for me, I'm just so proud of the way that our team has come together. Look, a low light for me has been seeing the success of the End of Life Choice Act in its first year. All the naysayers have gone away, but the compromises those naysayers force still mean that people who are suffering the worst, people with things like motor neuron disease, people like Frank Sanft, who was well covered by the Sunday Star a few months back, those people still miss out. So look, the highlights the team, the low light is the bittersweet success of the End of Life Choice Act, and seeing the compromises that we had to make for political reasons are still excluding people who could well benefit from having that choice and control should they want it.
How has your relationship with National changed this year, or has it changed?
Not really. I mean, when I first moved back from Canada, where Chris also lived for a period of time, I moved to number 4 Manawa Road, Remuera. Chris lived at number 6 Manawa Road, so we were neighbours for 2 years. We've always had a good personal relationship. So seeing Chris in the leadership, I think, has been good for ACT and National. He's, I think, the 7th national leader I've worked with, and probably the best relationship we've had so far. The next thing is, I think the National Party have come to accept that ACT is going to be part of a future government, and in some ways that I think is a little bit scary for them because they've never really had to share power. But there's also things we can do which are really positive. We have great expertise in education after making a real success of charter schools. I visited Vanguard Military School, a former charter school now operating as a special character school, but their 9th prize giving and their culture has lived on. That I think is where we can offer policy expertise and also just make sure that the next government has enough skill to address some of the very real challenges people face. The economy is in great difficulty, lawlessness is a concern of many people, and there has to be a way of interpreting the treaty in a modern context that brings people together more than it starts to categorise and separate them.
So National have got a habit of sort of copying ACT ideas or policies. Is that a sort of sign of success, or could that be quite annoying for you? Oh,
look, sometimes I got to think of ideas for two parties, but there's always more ideas where ACT gets them from. So we see it as a sign of success that our ideas spread across the political spectrum. So we saw just this year, Nationals say that putting ankle bracelets on youth offenders would, quote, break their heart. Now they have that policy. So it shows that ACT can not only oppose the government, but also propose better ideas and make sure that the whole toolkit that our society has for solving its problems is better equipped.
Would you be pushing for Finance Minister under some?
Look, let's see, how the chips lie. What I will say to people is that if you want responsible fiscal management, then a party vote for ACT means you've got more seats at the table for people who believe that the government's got to waste less, spend less and tax less. If you want to sort of keep Labor's tax policy, but have different people operating at Vote National, and depending on how people vote, I think I could do a good job as the Finance Minister, but I'm much more concerned about what will be the policy direction of a new government. So it's important to work out where you're going and then work out who's sitting where on the bus, rather than trying to, say me for the position for a politician. You've got to get the policies for people right first.
What are your bottom lines for working with National?
Look, we've said that there needs to be a referendum on co-government. I mean, the treaty has been interpreted for 40 years by the courts, the tribunal, the public service, and some aspects of academia, is something that is increasingly dividing people. It's a corporate relationship between two groups of people that 1980s thinking has been thoroughly rebuked by Dame Anne Salmond, among others, as being totally wrong and not an accurate historical reflection of what the treaty was about. I think when I see it, I read Ngā tikanga katoa rite tahi, the same rights and duties for all. So we want to pass a Treaty Principles Act that says, no, that the courts have got it wrong, this is what the democratically elected parliament say, and then actually invite the people of New Zealand to debate and ratify that in referendum. We need an open conversation. At the moment, if you try and even discuss the treaty, people shout you down and they say, oh, you must be alluding to some terrible thing, and we've got to stop thinking like that. Can't we all just get along? That's what I say. And an open discussion about what the treaty means in a modern context is extremely important to New Zealand. Beyond that, I think it's more important to talk about priorities, because both parties are going to need the other. So if everyone starts saying this is our bottom line, then of course you're not realistic. You're going to have to work together. But our priorities are getting the treaty right, getting kids to school to learn valuable academic knowledge, getting the regulatory state under control so there's more productive activity and less compliance activity, because we need to preserve our first world status, and getting government expenditure and tax under control.
So those would be your sort of big hitters policy-wise for the next year, so economy, crime, and a treaty referendum?
A treaty referendum, and under economy, there's short-term and long-term. So in the short term, it's about regulation, expenditure, tax. But in the long term, it's about transferring skills from one generation to the next. We are not transferring enough skills from one generation to another to maintain first world status. And that flows into what we can afford to do in healthcare. So, all of these things join together. Higher standards in education, more attendance, more attainment, more learning, more productivity, higher wages. People can afford to pay more tax, get better healthcare. It's, all of those things connect together.